Good evening. It's 2:14 after midnight. So if you're still awake, either your sleep schedule is ruined or something in your room doesn't want you asleep just yet. Tonight's story is about a mirror, and if you happen to have one near your bed, maybe try not to look at it too much while you listen. This is The Mirror of Envy. Do not pick up old mirrors off the street. Not even if it looks beautiful, not even if it looks expensive, and especially not if, in its reflection, you seem just a little prettier than you do in real life, because maybe it isn't showing you beauty at all. Maybe it has already decided what it wants to take from you. This happened in a small college town in Oregon, the kind with an old campus, brick dorm buildings, wet sidewalks, endless rain, and student apartments that always smelled like dust, cheap coffee, damp walls, and other people's exhaustion. The kind of apartments where the pipes groan at night, the hallways stay dim even in the afternoon, and every room feels like someone else lived there before you and left something behind. In one of those apartments lived 3 girls. The first was Brianna. People noticed her without trying, even when she was just walking down the hall in an oversized hoodie with wet hair after a shower. She was tall, dark-haired, with thick, glossy curls, clear skin, big brown eyes, and the kind of face that looked like it had been born with flattering lighting and the right camera angle. The second was Chloe, a completely different kind of beauty. Pale blonde hair, cool gray-blue eyes, a long, delicate neck, fine, neat features. She looked calm, almost gentle, but people still lowered their voices around her without realizing it, as if they were afraid of disturbing something pretty. And the third was Emma. Emma was not beautiful, and the worst part was that she knew it. She had thin, dull hair, uneven skin, front teeth that were a little too big, and a heavy face that looked wrong in every light. In the morning, at night, with makeup, without it. She slouched when she walked. She kept her chin down. Whenever someone pulled out a phone for a group photo, Emma would either drift to the back or find a reason to step out of frame entirely. She lived beside Brianna and Chloe like a shadow beside 2 lamps. And day by day, that shadow grew meaner. Emma never said she was jealous. She smiled, helped with classwork, sat with them in the kitchen sometimes, laughed in the right places, but her room was full of half-used skincare jars, cheap sheet masks, hair growth serums, vitamin bottles, old makeup brushes, collagen packets, under-eye patches, and a small tabletop mirror she stared into for far too long, as if she could bargain with her own face if she just looked at it hard enough. She was always trying to become better, and always staying exactly the same. One evening, Emma was coming back from a late class. It was raining, not hard, just that cold Oregon drizzle that can last for days and make everything look gray, slick, and unloved. Behind one of the buildings, near the dumpsters, she noticed something large leaning against a chain-link fence. At first, she thought it was a door, then she got closer. It was a mirror, huge, nearly full length, set in a heavy antique frame made of dark wood, the kind that looked swollen with age and damp, as if it had spent years drinking in moisture and fingerprints and whatever else had touched it. The frame was carved with grapevines, thorns, leaves, old roses, but if you looked carefully, hidden among the vines were tiny women's faces. There were a lot of them, too many. At first they looked like part of the design, then they started to look like something else, something that had not been carved so much as trapped. Some of the faces seemed asleep. Others stared off to the side. A few had their mouths slightly open, as if they had tried to scream, and the sound had gotten stuck inside the wood with the last of their breath. The longer Emma looked at them, the worse the feeling became. It no longer looked like decoration. It looked like the wood had once gone soft, and human faces had been pressed into it and left there. The glass was cloudy, like water at the bottom of an abandoned well. Not dirty, cloudy, deep. Far too deep for an ordinary mirror. It didn't look flat. It looked as if there were space behind the surface. An inch, maybe 2, maybe more, as if the reflection sat somewhere under the glass instead of on it, as if you could reach your hand in up to the wrist if you pushed hard enough. Emma leaned closer and saw herself, only not quite herself. In the reflection, her skin looked smoother, her hair looked thicker, her eyes brighter, her face softer, prettier, only a little, but it was enough. She dragged the mirror home. "Are you serious?" Brianna asked where she saw Emma hauling it through the apartment doorway. "You found that next to a dumpster?" "Yeah," Emma said. Chloe frowned immediately. "It doesn't look thrown away," she said. "It looks like somebody was trying to get rid of it." Emma didn't answer. She washed the mirror, polished the glass, scrubbed the carved frame with an old toothbrush, and set it in her room, directly across from her bed. That night, Brianna woke up to footsteps. Slow, wet, like someone barefoot was walking down the hallway, dragging their feet through something damp. Step, pause, step, pause, step. The sound moved so slowly, it felt deliberate, like whoever was making it wanted to be heard. Brianna lay frozen in the dark, eyes open, not breathing, listening to those dragging, sticky little steps creep down the hall. Then they stopped outside her door. Not outside Emma's, not outside the bathroom, outside hers. Brianna stared at the darkness above her bed and waited for the doorknob to turn. Instead, she heard a different sound. A scrape. Not the floorboards, not the door. It was the thin, awful sound of a fingernail being drawn very slowly across glass. She did not sleep again that night. In the morning, Chloe looked pale. "I heard whispering," she said quietly over breakfast, "right outside my room, like someone was standing under my door and talking into the crack." Emma sat at the table, eating cereal, calm as ever. "It's an old building," she said. "You're freaking yourselves out." But the noises kept happening. At first it was just the footsteps, then the whispering, then the soft, dry rasp of something being dragged over and over, as if someone were brushing out long hair right in the other side of the wall. Some nights, Brianna and Chloe would force themselves out of bed, turn on every light, and check the apartment together. The kitchen would be empty, the bathroom empty, the living room empty, the hallway empty. But light was almost always spilling out from under Emma's bedroom door. One night, they cracked it open. Emma was sitting in front of the mirror. She was brushing her hair, slowly, one stroke, another, another. The brush moved from crown to ends with a sickening patience, the kind of patience that made time feel wrong inside the room. She sat perfectly upright, shoulders relaxed, head tilted just slightly, staring at the glass so intently that it looked less like she was grooming herself and more like she was listening to something. "Emma?" Chloe said. No answer. Emma kept brushing. Brianna was already reaching to shut the door when she noticed something that made her stomach turn. Emma's reflection was smiling. The real Emma wasn't. A week later, Emma began to change. It started with her hair. It grew darker, thicker, heavier, shinier. The kind of hair that falls in expensive, glossy waves and looks almost too healthy to be real. Then her skin changed. The irritation faded. The texture smoothed. The tone evened out. Her face seemed brighter somehow, softer in the white places. Her lips grew fuller. Her eyes looked clearer. Even the shape of her face seemed to refine itself, as if someone were sanding away the wrong angles and sculpting better ones underneath. It happened gradually, but far too fast to be natural. Emma noticed it before anyone else did. She would sit in front of the mirror with a brush, and by morning her hair would look better. She would put on a cheap moisturizer, and the next day her skin would look clearer. She would fix her makeup in the mirror, and somehow her face would come away looking as if it had been professionally lit, contoured, adjusted. As if the mirror knew what she was supposed to look like and was correcting her in tiny, careful edits. She spent more and more time in front of it, during the day, late at night, before class, after showers, sometimes for no reason at all, sometimes just sitting there in silence, looking into the glass so long that Brianna would pass her room, glance in, and feel a hot pulse of revulsion for no reason she could explain. One night, Brianna finally asked, "Do you even sleep anymore?" Emma smiled. "I don't need as much now." And it was not the old Emma saying it. She was different, not just prettier, different. She started dressing differently, wearing tops she never would have worn before, taking photos of herself, letting people see her. Boys at school started staring, girls started asking what she had done to her face, but there was something wrong with it. People looked at Emma, and at first they reacted the way people react to beauty. Surprise, admiration, envy. Then they got close, and something changed. A guy in the dining hall came over to flirt with her, smiling, confident, halfway through introducing himself, and then he stopped dead. His face drained. He stared at her for 1 second too long, muttered an apology, and backed away so quickly he nearly knocked into a chair. A girl in the elevator glanced up and caught Emma's reflection in the mirrored wall. Her phone slipped out of her hand and hit the floor with a crack. A barista looked up while taking Emma's order, flinched so hard he spilled coffee across the counter. Emma thought they were jealous. "You're jealous too," she told Brianna and Chloe one evening. "You just hate that I'm the pretty one now." Chloe opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Because Emma was beautiful. That was the worst part. She really was. But standing near her had become unbearable. She smelled sweet, sickly sweet, like flowers left too long in hot water until the petals started to rot. Underneath it was another smell. Damp, sour, organic. Something wet and spoiled underneath perfume. The kind of smell that made the back of your tongue taste wrong. And her face. It was beautiful, but sometimes it seemed to move half a second too late. She would smile, and then the skin around her mouth would catch up a moment after the expression had already happened. She would blink, and something in her cheeks or jaw would lag behind. It was subtle, tiny, but once Brianna noticed it, she could never unsee it. It looked like a face that had been fitted onto her. One night, Chloe woke up to whispering again, but this time, it wasn't in the hallway. It was in Emma's room. She woke Brianna, and the two of them stood outside Emma's door in the dark, barefoot, barely breathing. From inside, they heard Emma's voice. "Just a little more," she whispered. "Please, I'm almost what I'm supposed to be." Then something answered her, very quiet, very wet, like someone speaking with a mouthful of saliva. Brianna shoved the door open. Emma was sitting in front of the mirror, and in the mirror, behind her, stood a woman. She was tall, too tall. Her head almost reached the top of the frame. Her arms were thin and gray, the hands resting gently on Emma's shoulders, as if she were fixing her posture. The woman's face was old, sagging and colorless, like flesh that had been soaked and drained. Her mouth was far too wide. Inside it were rows of tiny, sharp teeth. Not human teeth. Too small. Too many. Packed too close together. Glistening wetly in the dark. The woman looked directly at Brianna, then lifted one long finger to her lips. Brianna slammed the door so hard the frame shook. The next morning they tried to talk to Emma. They told her she needed sleep. Told her she smelled strange. Told her she looked wrong. Told her maybe she should go see a doctor. Emma laughed. "Wrong?" she said, turning toward the mirror with a smile. "You're just upset you're not the prettiest girls in this apartment anymore." Everything finally broke the night the power went out. No warning. 1 second the apartment was lit. The next, it dropped into total darkness. Not soft darkness, the kind that feels immediate and physical, like something has been pulled over your head. And then Emma screamed. Not a startled scream, not an angry scream. It was the sound of someone seeing the truth about themselves all at once. Brianna and Chloe ran to her room. Only gray rainlight from the window lit the space. The mirror stood black and dead, swallowing what little light there was. No reflection, no shine, just a tall slab of darkness in the middle of the room, and on the floor in front of it sat Emma. At first, neither of them understood what they were looking at. Then Chloe made a sound in her throat and clapped a hand over her mouth. The thing on the floor was Emma, or what was left of her without the mirror. Her hair was thin and patchy, falling away from her scalp in greasy clumps. Bare spots showed through. The skin underneath was mottled and unhealthy, spotted in places, stretched tight in others. Her face had collapsed into something older, grayer, emptied out. Her cheeks were sunken. The skin hung loose in folds around her mouth and jaw, as if all the softness had been scooped out from underneath. Her lips were split and crusted with blood, and her teeth, the front ones were almost gone. Her gums were dark, swollen, wet-looking. A thick strand of saliva hung from her mouth to her chin and trembled when she breathed. Chloe turned away and gagged. Brianna couldn't move. Emma grabbed her phone with shaking hands, turned on the camera, and looked at herself. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she started screaming. Not one scream, a series of them, ragged and rising, each one worse than the last. She clawed at her face, grabbed at her hair, pressed trembling fingers to her mouth. Hair came away in her hands. When she touched her teeth, one of them came loose and dropped into her palm with a wet click. Then another. They hit the floor like little white stones. "No," Emma rasped. "No, no, give it back. Please, please, give it back." And then the lights came back on. The mirror woke up. In the glass, Emma was beautiful, perfect, young, luminous, smooth skin, thick hair, bright eyes, full lips, every single thing she had wanted all her life, standing there whole and flawless inside the frame. The real Emma fell to her knees and crawled toward it. "Give it back," she whispered. "I'll do anything. Please, just give it back." The woman appeared behind her reflection again. Smiling, she laid those long gray fingers on Emma's shoulders with a tenderness so intimate it made Brianna's stomach turn. And in that moment, Brianna understood. The mirror was not making Emma beautiful. It was showing her what it was taking. Youth, hair, skin, teeth, her face. Everything was going into the glass. Emma arched suddenly, a broken gasp tearing out of her throat. Her hair began to come out in handfuls, not strands, clumps, whole damp clumps sliding off her scalp and hitting the floor. The skin on her neck loosened and sagged. Her cheeks hollowed further. Blood spilled from one nostril, then the other. One fingernail peeled backward from the nail bed and dropped onto the carpet with a tiny, soft tick. Inside the mirror, Emma's reflection only grew lovelier. Every wrinkle that deepened on the real Emma vanished from the face in the glass. Every clump of hair that fell from her head seemed to reappear there, thick and glossy. Every tooth that loosened in her mouth made the smile in the mirror whiter. Chloe grabbed a lamp and swung it into the mirror. The glass didn't shatter. It rippled, like black water, and hands came out of it, gray, long, wet-looking, with soft yellow nails. They seized Emma's hair, her cheeks, the sides of her throat. Emma tried to scream, but what came out was only a thick, bubbling rasp. Brianna and Chloe lunged for her and grabbed her legs, trying to drag her backward, but the mirror pulled harder. Emma slid across the floor, nails scraping bloody tracks through the wood. Her face struck the glass. It did not hit. It sank, slowly, stickily, as if the mirror were not glass at all, but a living mouth, soft and hungry, and pulling her in 1 inch at a time. First her face disappeared into it, then her shoulders, then her arms. Brianna was still gripping one ankle so hard her hands cramped, but Emma kept sliding forward, inch by inch, dragged by all those gray hands from the other side. The last thing left was one hand, Old, dry, spotted, the fingers open, closed, opened again, as if feeling for something to grab. Then that too slipped into the glass. The room went quiet. On the floor were only clumps of hair, several teeth, one torn fingernail, and the thick, sweet smell of rot. Brianna looked up. Emma was standing inside the mirror, beautiful, radiant, smiling. And when she smiled, Brianna saw that behind those perfect lips, there was no longer anything human about her mouth. Her teeth were small and sharp, just like the woman's. The mirror was gone by the next day. Police found nothing. Emma was listed as missing. Brianna and Chloe were questioned over and over, but no one believed the story about the mirror, the woman, the hands coming out of the glass. Chloe transferred schools and left the state. Brianna stayed, but she stopped being able to look into mirrors. She covered them with towels, washed her face with her eyes down, did her makeup only in daylight, and only if she absolutely had to. Sometimes she would pass a dark window at night and feel her pulse spike so hard it made her dizzy. 8 months later, Brianna ducked into a small vintage shop to get out of the rain, and there it was, in the back of the store, between an old vanity and a child stroller with no wheels, stood the same mirror, the same black frame, the same roses, the same tiny women's faces with their mouths open. Brianna had already taken a step back when she saw Emma inside the glass. Emma was beautiful, even more beautiful than before. She stood deep inside the mirror, brushing her hair. One stroke, another, and behind her, in the darkness, stood other women, dozens of them, all beautiful, all smiling, all hollow-eyed. Emma lifted one hand and crooked a finger at Brianna. Brianna ran. She ran out into the rain, all the way home, locked the door, and sat on the bathroom floor for a long time, with her back against the tub and both hands over her mouth. Eventually, she forced herself to stand. She went to the sink, looked up by accident. At first everything was normal. Then she noticed a fine new line on her cheek. Tiny, barely visible. Brianna slowly lowered her eyes. On the white porcelain of the sink lay a long, dark hair, not hers. And then, from the mirror directly behind her, Emma whispered softly, "Don't be scared. At first you were going to like yourself so much."